If you haven't watched the first part of this video, please go back first and check it out. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is going to be the second part of the video where I'm going to talk about veganism and how I became vegan and what I think about that now. In this video I'm going to talk about mainly three elements, being like how I see the human being in the natural environment, is going to be clear later, and whether I think or not that being vegan is the most ethical choice that someone can make, and how I see like veganism compared to other cultures than the Western one. Because we can say veganism is as like a movement or has like this philosophy is mainly part of the Western world, despite we can see, diet restrictions and things also in religions and spiritualities are part of other countries in the world. But I would say like as a phenomenon, as a social phenomenon, is mainly part of the Western culture. Talk about the first point, being like the position that a human being has in the natural environment. I have to start talking about how the human being is perceived in in veganism. That's what I could observe in my years as a vegan, and what I could read on the internet, and also what I used to think, because as I said in the first video, when I became a vegan almost around like 12-15 years ago, I was very extremist, so I could have a very delusional and like negative perspective on what it means to be human. So let's just start. Basically, in veganism, the human being is seen as being just a destroyer of the natural environment and just like using everything that can possibly be useful, such as in this case animals, and kind of like the human being takes the rights of other living beings away. So it's just good in stealing, in like destroying, killing, and doing everything for every human purpose, right? So this is not completely wrong, in the sense I don't have this rosy view of humanity, that we are all good and stuff. Of course, there are a lot of bad people and there are a lot of awful things happening, so yeah. But I think that we are potentially good as a species, and like either potentially good and bad. It depends how we act. And the thing is that this idea overlaps with the idea that as human beings, we are not supposed to use anything. So there is not like a middle ground. It's like, no, we are not supposed to use anything from animals. So you can use things from plants, of course, like respecting stuff and like being sustainable in what we do, but like absolutely not using anything from the animal world, because we can live without that, right? We need to be separated from animals. We cannot share anything with that world. So that's more or less the idea that the human being is basically bad, and that we need to stay separated from animals in order to live peacefully. And I was really into that idea, and as I said, we're not all good, but we are not even all that bad, and there are like middle grounds, right? The thing is that if you sustain a certain view of human beings that have to be separated from animals, then you also encounter certain contradictions. I'm going to make examples. So the first being like with pet animals, or like, the idea of, I would say, owning animals, but like, let's say with pet animals. So the idea is like, okay, if we don't have to interfere with animals, then we are not supposed to have pets. So we are supposed to just leave every cat, every dog, every animal, like pet animals that we find just there. And by pet animals, I mean like owning animals of any kind, just that you're not owning them for like eating purposes or other purposes, just for the sake of it, right? Okay, so we are supposed to just leave them out. And are we really going to do that? Because the thing is, of course, you as a vegan, we can say like, oh yeah, but actually humans decided to domesticate animals that should have been left free, right? Correct, okay. So the thing is, we either accept that in human history sometimes bad things happen for the good sake of it. So like, okay, domestication of animals might have not been the best thing maybe for animals that were captured, but on a long term, we gain company and they also gain protection, because they probably also had issues living in the outside world, and now they can have like protection. And they didn't really reverse the process. So if nature really was calling to go back to its roots, then probably animals, now that we don't really need animals, we don't need dogs for specific I don't know, like for specific like goals, but we just own them. Like nature would have reversed them, going back to their primitive state, right? But it didn't happen. And also, are we really going to be able to reverse that process? So in the end, it's a bit of a difficult and complex issue, because you need to take a position that is not like maybe empirically proven yet, or like that you can always counter somehow. So you need to take a position. So whether it was good or not to domesticate animals years ago. But from there, I'm like, so you as a vegan are not supposed to own any pet animals. Okay, some vegans do that, some, and I would say a lot, don't. So I'm like, okay, isn't that still a form of not owning animals? Yes. Is that bad? I wouldn't say so. So is owning itself a bad thing? And so for the vegans who do not adopt pet animals because they think they are supposed to stay there, okay, so if you find like an animal that needs your help, are you just leaving that animal there because, oh, you cannot own it? Or like, are you going to help it and then just leave it back to nature again? I don't know. I mean, might be happen that some people do that. That's not what I think. I think that in the end, there is this connection between animals and humans that goes beyond the concept of owning, and covers the concept of like cooperation and company and collaboration, I would say. This relates to the other element I want to talk about. So I'm realizing I really wanted to make it like more schematic, and I hope it is a bit schematic, but it's like a whole discussion. And sometimes when there are this type of arguments, it's better to make like a rounded discussion more than just like points. What I said before about pet animals leads to my way of seeing the human being in the natural environment. So, you know that image where we have like a pyramid, and then we have like the human at the top, and then nature and animals and stuff. And then there is the other image where we have the humans among like other animals and plants, and they form a circle. So the first one being like egocentric and this one ecocentric. So the idea is that we move from the idea that humans are on the top of everyone, and we go to the idea that humans are part of everything, right? So that we as humans cannot take all the rights we think we have, because we are part of a system. We are not owning the system. And I think that's like fundamental, that's like crucial as a perspective change, to show that we as humans are not gods, are not on the top of the world. We need to respect other living beings, and we cannot do just what we want, but we need to respect each other and cooperate. And we also are not that invincible as we think, because a lion can eat us up and then we are done, right? So this change to me was not that clear yet. And that's where I elaborated the view I have that I'm going to explain you now. What I think is like, in order to understand how humans are disposed in connection with plants, I would say like natural environment, like plants, lakes, or like the natural world, and animals, is that we have a double pyramid. The first one is based on necessity. And at the top, so the most important one is nature. Then we have animals, and then at the bottom we have humans. Why? Because for this planet, humans are not useful. Like the planet Earth doesn't need humans to live, doesn't need humans to exist, right? We are just hosts. We are here to live in this world, to make something out of it, to cooperate with nature, right? But we are not essential. We have animals that are in the middle because they are useful in the sense that, they are fundamental in natural cycles and how to, maintain the world going on. They help planting seeds, or like they exchange nutrients and things like that. And then we have the natural world at the top. I think like the importance between animals and plants is very thin, while nature is at the top, because nature is essential in order for animals and humans to exist. Without nature, we are nothing. And of course, animals are, as I said before, like fundamental as well in order for nature to keep going. But I would say nature comes first in that sense. Like it gives the basics to exist. The second pyramid, which is based on, I would say, evolution, humans are at the top and nature is at the bottom, and the middle is always animals. It doesn't mean that nature is not evolved. It doesn't mean that nature is just like simple and stuff, because it's extremely complex, and animals are extremely complex, and whole like the ecosystem is complex. But I would say that humans are as well complex in the way they're functioning, but they have something more. Like you have, and of course then we enter the spiritual world and we're like, yes, but like also nature has consciousness. I was going to say like humans have consciousness, and we can say, well, also plants have consciousness, also animals have consciousness. And of course these then goes into the spiritual view that someone has. I do believe that, but I see the planet Earth as being like, and I'm not going deep into that because then it's going to be another video if you're interested about, but it's just to explain like being like an hosting planet that keeps repeating itself and has to go on in that way because it has to teach certain lessons. It's kind of like a video game, more or less, right? So it keeps going on this in the same way. Despite being extremely intelligent, extremely complex, it keeps going in the same way, right? While we as humans, yes, our body has to work in a certain way, but I think there's more complexity in terms that we think, we have our consciousness that I don't think is the same as the natural world. It's a bit more evolved because also as souls, we also come from other planets, we lived in different dimensions. So I would say that, of course, this is a spiritual perspective. This goes beyond the bare vegan discussion, but as I said, I'm going to mix and trying to explain spirituality together with topics of our life. So if you don't really know how this channel works, please go back to my first videos where I'm going to explain this. I was just assuming that in this video, but like we as humans have a consciousness, a soul that has evolved also through different dimensions and lives and stuff like that, while the planet Earth, such as other planets, just were that planet. So I don't know, I hope it's clear. So in this new pyramid, we have humans at the top, animals in the middle, and nature at the bottom. What does this distinction want to tell us? When it comes to the pyramid where humans are at the bottom, so we are not important for this planet, like the planet can survive without us, we can learn humility and simplicity and respect for the planet we live in, because we are like, hold on, you can be Einstein and be like super intelligent, but literally this planet can survive without you. So just lower the bar a bit and be like, okay, being like aware of our fragility, right, of our role in this planet. So I can be like humble and respect the planet where I'm living in it, which consequently means trying to respect living beings as much as possible. And I would say, and that's of course a personal, and this can open up further discussion for sure, and I would say that eating animals, like killing animals, does not align with the respect we should have towards our planet. At the same time, as being like more conscious and more evolved, we can, you know, think that yes, we can intervene in this planet, and by intervening means also helping the planet, in the sense that sometimes like animals get hurt, they get hit by something and we can help the animal, or they got healed and then we can heal the animals. So we have this role, right? The fact that we are useful somehow, we can actually improve the conditions, because yes, the planet can survive itself, animals can survive itself, but why humans can't contribute if they find solutions to improve the conditions of everyone living on this planet? Despite now we're not really doing that, we're actually creating more and more issues, but we could help the planet. So then we can intervene in the planet. We can have this exchange with the animal world, and yeah, we can help them out. And this kind of challenges the idea that we as humans need to be separated from the animal world and we don't need to intervene anyhow. So more specifically, when it comes to animals as food, as I said, I don't think that we need to eat animals, but then I'm like, what if we see humans using animal products as an exchange? So being like, who tells us that animals really don't want to be taken care of and they just want to live in the wild? Maybe there are animals, and there are animals, I do believe, that are really, really attached to humans. I think there is this exchange. We are just all together and we need to cooperate and collaborate in this world and exchange love, exchange energies. So I'm like, maybe it's okay if we protect certain animals, such as, you know, cows and stuff like that, and chickens, and then in exchange they give us their products, which doesn't mean exploiting animals. It doesn't mean that, oh, then I'm going to make an omelette every day. It means that sometimes we can use their products. So it's not an excuse to just eat a lot of dairies or eggs or something like that. Like, not excluding totally the idea that we can use animal products. So I don't know whether what was in my mind was clear. And of course, everything then is based on the decision you make and the positions you take. And sometimes it's like an arbitrary idea that you have to sustain. But yeah, that was like a long reflection to say that my idea of being vegan is not that strict anymore, because I do believe there is the possibility to exchange, to make exchanges with the animal and the natural world without being seen as bad because we humans only steal or we destroy. We can actually create a peaceful and like fruitful way of interacting with animals and nature. The other element that I want to talk about to challenge, as I said, as we're talking about veganism, is the fact that being vegan doesn't always equal making the most ethical choice. I think being ethical is very complex. You have to take in consideration, by being ethical, I mean like being the most respectful as possible towards what surrounds you, right? And I do believe that it's very complex. You have to take a lot of things into consideration. And sometimes being vegan is a bit restrictive, because it can become too extreme. Let me explain that. So being vegan has flaws, especially in the modern world, and I'm going to explain that later. But the thing is, like, most of the time, a lot of vegans are a bit extreme, and now is less, but like before, like there were at me, when I was part of that, vegans could have been very extreme, and it seemed like they couldn't do anything wrong, like they were perfect and things like that. And now we are starting to realize that we cannot be perfect, we can just trying to be as perfect as possible. And it means that sometimes maybe you buy a product that you didn't know that that single ingredient was actually an animal ingredient, so you're like, okay, I'm not doing that the next time, but I couldn't know, so I'm going to improve myself. I wasn't perfect, I can improve myself, or things like that. But sometimes it can happen that excluding animal products is not always the best choice. But then you have to take in consideration other elements such as the environment. So let me make an example so that it's clear. I'm buying tofu, I'm buying seitan, I'm buying burgers. They are wrapped in plastic, right? They have been produced by industries that use plastics, that create pollution. And of course, most of the time, the industries that create these products pay more attention to the way they produce food, but still we have to take the car and go to the grocery and, you know, using bags and stuff like that to buy tofu that is without animal products. Okay, well, what if you had chickens in your garden and you were just taking 2 eggs? So of course then you're like, I'm having an animal product, but then if we balance things out, it is more ethical to have 2 eggs from your garden where your chicken is just there, living her life, and you just go out in your garden, take the eggs and bake them, instead of like taking the car or walking or whatever, go to the supermarket that, you know, produces pollution and stuff, and contributing maybe to a supermarket that also sells meat and stuff like that. So it's like a whole process just because you want the vegan product. And I mean, I think it would be better to have the 2 eggs in this case. I do believe in that. I do believe that sometimes, if it's possible, it's better to have eggs and stuff that come from your garden rather than doing the whole thing, because yes, you might not have animal products, but then you're causing, like, you are participating in a bigger issues, which is like pollution and environment destruction and stuff like that, just because then it's written that it's vegan. But yeah, that's easier said than done. And of course, this is a reflection that works now and works in a specific time and space. So I made this reflection, and what we can take away from this reflection is that veganism is not perfect. Like, there are flaws, there are reasonings that we can make, and that actually is going to destroy the idea that just because you are vegan and you're not eating animal products, then you are okay. There are these, you know, gray areas that challenge this idea of, you know, of being perfect as vegans. But of course, if in a future vegan products are just wrapped up in paper and, you know, supermarkets don't pollute anymore, or like things like that, then in my opinion would be better to keep not having animal products instead of having your eggs. In my idea, maybe someone else doesn't see the issue of eating eggs anyway, so it's okay. But yeah, then of course it would be just, you know, a matter of personal choice. Now I'm still a vegan, if you are having this question. In my situation, I don't have this choice, so I'm like, yes, I'd rather have the vegan burger, even if it's not the best, because it's still better than having eggs, milk and stuff from, yeah, big brands, industry and stuff like that. Leaving alone the fact that I don't like the taste of milk, I hate eggs, like, I don't like the products anyway. Going to the third or fourth point, I didn't really count that, to challenge veganism, I'm going to talk about different countries, different cultures. So I think this video is going to be very long, but like, when I was more extremist, I was like, yes, the whole world has to be vegan. I don't care if you live in, I don't know, like Greenland, you have to be vegan and eat tofu and things like that. So then then I had people being like, yeah, but like, you can't force Eskimos, for example, to have tofu. Like, they don't have that. They can just eat animals or things like that. So, okay, then you can say, well, then let's bring all the people that are forced to eat animals to other countries so that they can be vegan, because then nature allows that. I'm like, yes, can be. Like, if we want to force veganism to the whole world, then yes, we can move people. But do we have the right to do that? Like, can we force people to move to other countries just because we want everybody? I mean, by we, I say like vegans or whatever. It's just like a general way of talking, but like, can we bring everyone somewhere else just because we want everyone to be vegan? Or maybe we should respect their choices as well, even if it's different from what we want. The other thing is, like, it's not only wrong to displace everybody just for the sake of an ideology, of like a perspective, but also sometimes, even if it's possible for a country to become vegan, maybe it would be more difficult. Then there is always like culture into play. I'm make an example about Morocco because I was there recently. And I was like, yes, Morocco could be vegan, right? Why not? Like, they have an abundant nature, they eat already like a lot of vegetables, or maybe not vegan, but at least vegetarian, eating eggs, cheese, why not? But if they still eat animals, and it's part of their nature, it's part of their culture, and it's different from here, it's mostly meat produced by local farmers, small farmers, it's just different. So and then I'm like, okay, to me it's still painful to see animals hanged and like staying there like dead bodies when you go to the market. I'm like, I don't really like to see that, but like, who am I to force the change on anyone if it's still part of their culture and they do it respectfully? Of course, I personally cannot see the respect in killing an animal, but we cannot say that it's because it's just like my principle that is not good to kill animals. But at the same time, they do it in a respectful way because it's not intensive farming, is really like people having their animals and killing them. So if we would agree that killing animals is okay, then yes, they do it in a respectful way. So there are cultures, there are countries that it's more difficult to make this complete change. In this case, we can conclude for this specific thing that it would be great to me that the world would be vegan one day, but that is up to every single person to make this choice. And in the case of countries where their culture is stronger on eating animals and stuff like that, then probably it's the new generations that have to make this change. And it might require a lot of time, and it might never happen. If I'm respected and I can make my choices, then it's good enough. It's good enough. And a last argument, always related to the last point I discussed, is that as vegans and as vegan, I realize that I cannot always be vegan when I travel, right? Because if I stay in Europe, then it's fine, if I stay in countries such as Spain, France, the Netherlands, Germany, then they're open to, veganism, of course. We have plenty of choices. Then it's fine. I can be vegan, right? Because I want to fulfill my principles. I want to respect them. But if I go, like when I was in Morocco, I'm not sure if I was always vegan. Probably not, because of course I stayed mostly in like the rural areas. So if you maybe go to a supermarket in Marrakesh, then you have vegan options. I didn't do that, honestly. I never entered a supermarket. I just saw Rabat as a modern city, so I didn't see the modern parts of the cities. I wanted to stay in the old parts, so then there were plenty of vegan options, but like by accident. But sometimes, like when I was eating in hostels, like for breakfast, I probably had something that had butter in it or like eggs or something. But in that time, I had another way of approaching my diet. And I was like, of course, I try to be as vegan as possible because that's what I want to eat. And I try to be, and I try to exclude animal products as much as possible. At the same time, I cannot pretend that in a country where veganism is not that diffuse, they have the products I want if they don't produce them for their own people. And of course, we can open a discussion and say, oh, maybe there are vegans, it's just that they don't want to produce that, I don't know. But for now, I cannot pretend that. So I need to make peace with the fact that it might happen that I have vegan, that I don't have always vegan food. And then it's about how flexible you are, and then it's about how you see veganism. And of course, for an extremist, as I used to be, as I said, it was unacceptable. But then I'm like, then it's like a challenge between your principle and you imposing your ideas on others. I don't know if it makes sense. So in that sense, I was like, okay, it's acceptable for me that sometimes I might have had food that contained butter and eggs. And if we think about going to visit the areas where Eskimos live, then of course I might have to eat animals in that case. And then I'm like, I would love to visit those places. I'd rather respect my principles of not eating animals, which is not the same as not eating animal products. So I'm not going there because I cannot pretend that they cook for me tofu and salad, just making an example. And I don't want to eat animals, so I'm just not going. So then we are all happy. Yes, I'm going to miss a place, but then who's winning, right? And in this case, my principles are winning. So I'm not gonna die if I don't visit that place. Of course, I would be sad, but I would be more sad if I would eat animals, you know? So yeah, then it's just this, continuous reflection on whether we put principles in front or we put experience or things like that. This video was very long. I know, I wanted to make it shorter. I just realized I talk a lot and I realized some points are not that quick to be explained. I hope they were clear, they were reflections, so sometimes it's easier to have like your own idea and have it in your head instead of like explaining. But I hope it was somehow clear. If you have any question, please just let me know. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoy these videos in general. So please let me know in the comment what you think, or just contact me. It's going to be okay both ways because I would love to be in contact with you. With that being said, please subscribe to the channel so that it's going to help me out growing, and also activate the notification bell so that you won't miss any other video. And with that being said, I also remember I have an Instagram page where you can follow me, and it's like a more direct way to stay in contact. And yeah, with that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video and I see you in the next one. Bye!